Hey all you cats and chicks out there, welcome back to Control Players Unite. I'm your host, Dr. Red. Today we will be reviewing my favorite topic on this channel, all of the Aggro-Control / Tempo Pokemon in the current standard format. Aggro-Control refers to the Pokemon cards that have average or middling attack damage but with a control effect, something that puts additional pressure on one's opponent. One might consider winning with these Pokemon by taking all 6 prizes, others a delay or a stall tactic, still others quote-unquote pure disruption. The possibilities are near endless, so don't be afraid to explore. For brevity, we will analyze only multi-prize Pokemon, though any number of single-prize Pokemon could also be included. All cards will have some degree of elaboration, so let's begin. Chesnaught V has the Needle Line ability. If your active Chesnaught V is damaged by an attack from your opponent's Pokemon, put 3 damage counters on the attacking Pokemon. This ability also stacks, so you can do 120 damage without even lifting a finger. It also has the Touchdown attack for 130 damage and heals 30 damage from this Pokemon. It's difficult to get charged, historically at least. Gardenia's Vigor usually is not enough, because that's only for the bench. And there isn't really a good grass acceleration right now. So it's possible you might just consider putting it in the active and letting it take damage as a tank, using a penny to get rid of it, and then putting a fully charged one in play. You might also consider putting Hero's Cape on it, so that it'll just become tankier. And you could also consider putting Radiant Serena on the bench to heal 20 damage at the start of your turn. So that's just a little bit of possibility there for Chesnaught V. Next we have Espathra EX. This is a rising archetype, as I call them. It's becoming increasingly more popular. There was one that did rather well, I understand, at the most recent regional in Indianapolis as of the posting of this video. Has the Dazzling Gaze ability. As long as this Pokemon is in the active spot, attacks used by your opponent's active Pokemon cost 1 colorless more. Cyball has a base 30 damage. It has 30 more damage for each energy attached to both active Pokemon. This card is often paired with Bayonet EX because it has Everlasting Darkness, which is an item lock attack. Your opponent cannot play item cards from their hand. This card is also paired with Pokemon League Headquarters, a stadium that increases basic Pokemon's attacks by 1 energy cost. So this card can really do a number on things, making it very tricky and frustrating for your opponent to get an attack off, and it's definitely worth exploring. Scovillain EX has seen success in Japan leagues with Chili Snapper Bind. Your opponent's active Pokemon is burned and it cannot retreat. Two-Headed Crushing discards a random card from your opponent's hand and the top card of your opponent's deck. It also does 140 damage, so it's doing 280 on a Charizard. This card has the capacity, I think, to break out, but it needs just a little bit of a boost, I think. It needs something to support it in the background, and so far the deck builds I've seen have this as the only attacker. It might take a few expansions to get what it really needs so it can pop off, but the fact that it's only 2 grass energies is really promising, as that's pretty easy to get in this format. So definitely don't be afraid to explore this one, because it has a lot of promise, I think, to break out even if it's just in an online environment. Spidops EX has Trapped Territory, an ability that states your opponent's active Pokemon's retreat cost is 1 colorless more. Wire Hang has 90 base damage plus 30 more damage for each colorless in your opponent's active Pokemon's retreat cost. This card, ladies and gentlemen, can be paired with pretty much anything. Hisuian Zoroark with the Doom Curse attack to get an instant KO. It can be used with Venomoth for using item lock to get your opponent to concede via frustration. It can be paired with pretty much anything you can think of by setting it in the active spot, by setting something else in the active spot to just stall, like Mimikyu. It can also attack if you have, obviously, grass and a colorless energy, so you could even use it as a backup aggro attacker. This one has a number of deck lists online. I've seen it even paired with Wug Trio for trapping something like a Manaphy in the active spot, so Wug Trio can just mill the opponent crazy. So definitely have fun with this one. Has a lot of potential, even if they're just for rogue and meme decks. Toedscruel EX has Protective Mycelium. Prevent all effects of attacks used by your opponent's Pokemon done to all the Pokemon that have energy attached. Colony Rush is 80 base, 2 grass energy. This attack does 40 more damage for each of your benched Pokemon that have any grass energy attached. I've heard stories that players cannot get this to be an archetype on its own. It just isn't powerful enough, but the Protective Mycelium ability is enough to warrant a 1/1 line in any of your decks, especially Control. You might consider, say, putting it with Noivern EX to prevent something like Roaring Moons, Frenzied Gouging, or Giratina V-Star's Lost Impact. This card is truly flexible and can fit with pretty much anything. Venusaur EX. This card has the Tranquil Flower ability. Once during your turn, if this Pokemon's in the active, you can heal 60 damage from one of your Pokemon. 2 grass and a colorless energy for Dangerous Toxwhip, base 150 damage. Your opponent's active Pokemon is confused and poisoned, so it's actually doing 160. This card is tricky because it requires 3 grass energy to get charged up, has a 4 energy retreat cost, but with Big Balloon Tool card, that makes it 0, so that's not too bad. It's also pretty tanky at 340, and with a Hero Escape, make it 440. This card just needs a little bit of a boost. If it was 160 maybe, certainly 170 damage, it would be overpowered, one-shotting Charizard and having a chance with everything else as well. I haven't seen it paired with too much. Usually it's its own thing because it's a stage 2 and requires a lot of TLC with the 3 energy cost. Like Chesnaught, maybe it just needs to wait a little bit. These grass cards seem to be needing just a little something else to get it going, and then they'll just pop off. So definitely keep an eye on Venusaur. Alolan Vulpix V-Star. This card is extremely important for aggro control. Snow Mirage does a base 160 for a water and 2 colorless, so if you put a DTE it does 140. This attack's damage isn't affected by any effects on your opponent's active Pokemon, so it cuts through things like Mimikyu. During your opponent's next turn, prevent all damage done to this Pokemon by attacks from Pokemon that have an ability. That includes Charizard EX. Silvery Snowstar is a V-Star power. This attack does 70 damage for each of your opponent's Pokemon V in play. That's not going to be seen too much because Pokemon V are rarer nowadays, at least in droves. Alolan Vulpix V-Star won NAIC last year, I think it was. It's an extremely powerful card for the reasons just listed under Snow Mirage. This was also paired in a regular standard control deck before Block Snorlax was a thing, just to keep the opponent from taking prizes. As you can tell, it's extremely powerful. Definitely recommend experimenting with this one. Once you get the water energy out of the way, you can pair with pretty much anything. I found and used a deck from Japan that pairs this card with Bronzong, and Bronzong with Evolution Jammer, so that your opponent cannot evolve their Pokemon. But even if they get Bronzong out of the active and evolve, Snow Mirage can come in and just cut through effects and also block Pokemon with abilities. It truly is a 1-2 punch. Definitely recommend exploring this one. Now, Glaceon V-Star is interesting. It gets absolutely no attention. Icicle Shot does 180 for 2 water and a colorless. And during your opponent's next turn, the defending Pokemon can't retreat. V-Star Power Crystal Star, same energy cost, 220 damage. During your opponent's next turn, prevent all damage from and effects of attacks done to this Pokemon. I think the reason why is the 260 HP, and it doesn't have something devastating like cutting through abilities like Alolan Vulpix. I'm sorry, special effects, special conditions like Alolan Vulpix V-Star and blocking abilities. It also would be really helpful to have it with Arceus V-Star to get it charged up quicker. And to do that, you might as well just make it a straight up aggro deck. But the effects here, ladies and gentlemen, are of an aggro control kind. So we included in this list. I don't know how much, I don't think it's going to get any love even online. But, you know, it is a nice card to know exists. You might consider pairing it with a Vanillux if you can get close to KOing something. If not with this, then with this card and a helper card. Just to stop your opponent from really going all out on you with Glaceon. Don't know how else to put it, but we'll have to see if anyone wants to do anything creative with it. Serena EX, really fun rogue deck. Has Icicle Soul, Put damage counters on one of your opponent's Pokemon until his remaining HP is 30. Trop Kick for 2 grass energy, does 180 damage, and it heals 30 from this Pokemon, and it recovers from all special conditions. So Serena EX is self-healing, dishing out decent damage, and also putting a lot of damage counters on Pokemon. This card is paired with Hisuian Braviary, with the Eerie Cry attack, putting 3 damage counters on anything that has damage counters on it. You could pair it with Mismagius, but the charging up with the Psychic Energy compared to Serena's Grass is going to be awkward. It's also paired with Elekid, with just 30 damage to any one Pokemon for free. It's a free attack. I've also seen this card paired with Crobat, which has the Critical Bite attack, doing 30 damage to any Pokemon on the board, and if it KOs it, you take 2 additional prizes. So imagine KOing Iron Hands EX and getting 4 instead of 2 prize cards. This card has a lot of promise in it, I think. Like the grass decks, just needs a little bit of help. It wouldn't hurt if you tried putting, say, Abomasnow with it, the one that prevents healing, so that nobody can get rid of that 30 the 3 damage counters being left over, because you slap a Panic Mask on this thing and all of a sudden you're not taking any damage. And if you put a Vanillux into play, your opponent can't even attack with 40 HP or less. This card is just really fun to play, really fun to pop off, and I hope you can explore it if you haven't already. Alakazam EX is another favorite here. Mind Jack for 2 colorless, 90 base damage, 30 more for each of your opponent's benched Pokemon, but it has for 2 Psychic Energy, Dimensional Hand, 120. But the thing is, it's one of the most unique Pokemon cards in the history of the Pokemon TCG. Dimensional Hand can do damage right from the bench. Put something in the active, Fluttermane, Klefki, Mimikyu, even block Snorlax, and just use Dimensional Hand to take out your opponent little by little. There's a new Alakazam EX being released that would pair really well with this as a one-of, in case you can't get this card set up in time. But Dimensional Hand is extremely unique and very much worth exploring with all of the cards out in this current format. Bayonet EX is seeing a ton of play, at least with Espathra EX. Everlasting Darkness states during your opponent's next turn they can't play any item cards from their hand. And Poltergeist says 60 damage for each trainer card you find when your opponent reveals their hand. So this card will not only, obviously we just said it stops item cards from being played. It's a frustrating deck to play against because you can't use any energy cards, can't use any switching cards. You just have to depend on charging, hard retreats, and hoping you find the evolution Pokemon you need to make things happen. Definitely worth playing, and pairing with the Baby Bayonet that allows you to put a supporter card from your discard pile into your hand, so you can use maybe something like an Airy twice in a row, or a Misfortune Sisters twice in a row, or twice in a game even, just at all if you just use a one-of. So there's a lot of possibilities there with those types of cards, and I would not be afraid to pair this with other things like Mimikyu. Cofagrigus EX is good for Mimikyu and Mismagius play. Gold Coffin ability states that if this Pokemon is knocked out by damage from an attack from your opponent's Pokemon, search your deck for a card, put it into your hand, and then shuffle your deck. The Hollow Hands attack does 110 damage, very, very low, but 5 damage counters on your opponent's bench Pokemon any way you like. That is an instant KO on Pidgey. That's setting up Charmander at 60 or 70 HP up for a KO next turn. It's setting up Manaphy to be KO'd. This effect is made for that. It's made to set things up for other attackers like Mismagius to come up and then finish them off. This card is also good to be paired with a Xatu for getting charged up in as little as 1 turn, with the Clairvoyant Sensibility allowing you to attach 1 Psychic Energy to the bench, to a bench Pokemon from your hand. Hasn't seen any competitive play either. Neither is this card, Hatterene VMAX, 320 HP, so bulky, which is Domain ability. Once during your turn, you may move up to 2 damage counters from your Pokemon to your opponent's active Pokemon. This ability stacks, so if you have 4 of them in play, that's 8 damage counters. Gmax Smite does 150 damage for a Psychic and 2 colorless. Your opponent's active Pokemon is now confused. With a Psychic and a double colorless, it's only doing 130. Confusion is nice because of the coin flip. You're not guaranteed, your opponent isn't guaranteed an attack, but it's really kind of small, and so you're only doing 260 in a turn. It's like it's a 3-shot for things like Charizard. This card hasn't seen any play. You could try pairing it with something like Arceus V-Star to maybe get it off, but it's like, why pair it with something like Arceus if it's not really good on its own? So one of the ideas for using this card is not to actually attack with it at all. Just set it up on your bench and let something else do the attacking for you. So that's the main possibility I would go with this card at this time. Hisuian Typhlosion V-Star sees absolutely no play. Hollow Flame, 2 Psychic and a colorless, does 180 damage. Put 3 damage counters on your opponent's bench Pokemon any way you like. This would be a good cleanup attack, one might say. If you have something that's like, if you have like a Serena EX type of card, although those two would not be good when paired together, to just get rid of something that's already been damaged. Shimmering Star is the V-Star power for a Psychic Energy. If your opponent's active Pokemon has exactly 4 damage counters, that Pokemon's knocked out. So this game, the makers, I mean, are kind of expecting you to have used Hollow Flame twice maybe, setting something up. It sounds like it could be fun, but you're going to be frustrated to maybe get this charge. But if you have something like Xatu, maybe it isn't so bad. So I think maybe if you play around with the right draw schema, you could find something that works just well. Slowking EX, 270 HP, Profound Knowledge, 30 damage. Your opponent's active Pokemon's confused. Wise Headbutt, 2 Psychic, 130 damage. You may search your deck for 2 cards, put them into your hand, then shuffle your deck. And that's the reason what makes this card, ladies and gentlemen, Aggro-Control, is to the effect that card searching excuse me, can be used to find disruption cards like Airy and Misfortune Sisters, anything else like Crushing Hammer, to really just on the next turn just pop off on your opponent. The problem is that Wise Headbutt only does 130, so you're back to the whole Hatterene VMAX dilemma. This card I think needs a lot of help. I think Hero's Cape could go a long way, putting it at 370, but it's like, why play this if you could play something else? I feel bad saying that. I want this card to be good. You could expect me even to explore it in the future, but for now, I just don't see it going anywhere. But maybe it just needs the right pairing partner, like maybe Radiant Alakazam, in case your opponent has big hands, etc. Vespiquen EX, Healing Pheromone, 60 damage for one of your Pokemon. Phantom Queen, 3 Grass Energy, put 3 damage counters on each of your opponent's benched Pokemon that have any damage counters on them. Also does 200 damage. This card is often paired with something like Fortress EX, because Fortress EX has an ability that's wherein it self-destructs, but you get 5 basic energy, grass energy cards from your deck to put anywhere you want. So that's how we charge up the Vespiquen and then start taking KOs, or we try to. It'd be good with a spread deck. Or a spread aspect like an Elekid, Hisuian Braviary, Cofagrigus, if it wasn't so awkward to have those 2 cards paired together to charge them up. Maybe they're not. I mean, it looks bad on paper, but who knows in person. Also, the 270 HP, it's okay. As I said with Slowking, Hero's Cape might take care of this. This card, again, it's just a little awkward. You might even want it to be like 170 or 180 for 2 Grass Energy, in which case, yes, it would be really, really good. That extra energy goes a long way. So Vespiquen EX, it's nice that it's Terra. It doesn't take any bench damage, but it is what it is. So have fun exploring with this one. It doesn't seem too good on the surface though, but you might get some good ladder wins. Whimsicott V-Star. This was popular when it first came out. It wasn't the Astral Radiance or the one that starts with Brilliant Stars. I can't remember the name of it. Trick Wind, Psychic, 2 colorless, 160. During your opponent's next turn, they can't play any Pokemon tool or special energy cards from their hand, which is not too devastating. Then Fluffball Star is the V-Star power. This attack does 60 damage to one of your opponent's Pokemon for each energy attached to this Pokemon. So if you were to somehow get a ton of energy on it, 60 times the number of energy, could one-hit KO something. Otherwise, Whimsicott V-Star is extremely mid. It doesn't seem to have the potential it once had, and I don't think it's going to get the cards it needs to be successful, but we don't know that for a fact just yet. Nobody plays it. There are way more powerful attackers out there, and it's not, and I say that, ladies and gentlemen, not to discourage anybody, but really, it just doesn't seem very fun. But you never know when something might change. Glimmora EX is fun, however, at least I think it is. Dust Field basically reduces your opponent's bench down to 3. Poisonous Gem for 2 fighting energy does 140 damage, and the opponent's active is now poisoned. You could pair this with Radiant Hisuian Sneasler. Also, Baby Glimmora with the Prize Denial ability. This card hasn't seen any competitive play, but it really does seem like it's just a good time to have because of what it can do. Get your opponent's bench down, poison them, try to take a KO in 2 hits. It's 270, so that's okay. I don't want to sound like a broken record with Hero's Cape, but you can tell I'm really a fan of that card. Glimmora EX is just a good time all around. You could pair it with Koraidon EX to get it charged up in a single turn. You could put Hawlucha down with the Flying Entry ability to stack up some damage counters somewhere. And really just try to also try to use Bibarel for drawing support. I find that works very well with this deck. And the Rocky Plate, chest plate, for reducing damage by 30. There, you have a deck idea right there, right now. So yeah, have fun with Glimmora EX. You can also have fun with Lycanroc EX, Rock Throw, 40 damage, 1 fighting energy. Scary Fangs, 1 fighting, 2 colorless for 140. But here's the thing. During your opponent's next turn, if this Pokemon is damaged by an attack, you put 10 damage counters on the attacking Pokemon. So in a way, it's like doing 240 damage. And it's also causing your opponent to rethink attacking you, because do I really want to take 100 damage? Maybe you don't. As I said for Glimmora, everything with Lycanroc EX, same thing. It doesn't hurt that a DTE gets it done, so it's just, attachment for turn twice. And if you can make it bulkier, more power to you, because you'll be dishing out more damage counters. So Lycanroc EX has a little bit of fun potential in it. Ting-Lu EX was really popular when it was first released. Has the Cursed Land ability. As long as this Pokemon's in the active spot, your opponent's Pokemon that have any damage counters on them have no abilities, except for Pokemon EX. So Miraidon EX would have its ability, but not Bibarel, not Mimikyu. So very, very interesting for shutting down single prizers. Land Scoop, put 2 damage counters on one of your opponent's benched Pokemon and does 150 damage for 3 fighting energy. Mid, but this has a lot of fun potentiality in it if you can just somehow you manipulate the damage counters on your opponent's Pokemon and just get this thing in the active to minimally stall, because it has 240 HP for a basic, which is, wow, a lot for a basic. So definitely worth your consideration, I think. Arbok EX is one of my favorite cards in the format. It has Bind Down, 2 Darkness Energy, 70 damage. During your opponent's next turn, the defending Pokemon can't retreat. But then it has Menacing Fangs, 150 damage for 3 Dark Energy. Your opponent discards 2 cards from their hand. And I, ladies and gentlemen, so want this card to be good, and it just isn't right now. It's very awkward to get charged up. You have to use Dark Patch, but then you have to use 1 or 2 of them just for 1 Pokemon instead of saying 4 of them. Then you have to attach for turn, and even then you need another one for Menacing Fang. So you have to use something like Giovanni's Charisma to get rid of an energy on your opponent's active Pokemon to put an energy from your hand onto Arbok. And I've done this once before, so it is possible. And then you just try to wait out your opponent on the other turns. The discarding of the 2 cards can help, but again, maybe they have something like a Manaphy they don't want or need, so it just, it's fodder. That's fine. We don't want our opponent to have more cards. The thing is, it just gets hit, gets KO'd, you have to charge it up again. Experience share goes a long way, but maybe I'm using the wrong cards. I just can't seem to get it to work. I've seen it make top 16 in Japan, so it has to be maybe my playstyle, but it's paired with Darkrai V-Star for the V-Star power to get back 2 of your dark patches. And Darkrai V-Star could attack in its own right as long as you have a lot of dark energy on your Pokemon. I really want this card to be good. I just can't seem to get it there, and no one else can either. So it is what it is. Gengar EX has the Gnawing Curse ability. It does stack. Whenever your opponent attaches an energy card from their hand to one of their Pokemon, you put 2 damage counters on that Pokemon. For 2 Darkness Energy, Tricky Steps does 160 damage, and you may move an energy from your opponent's active Pokemon to one of their benched Pokemon. Very fun to just put something that they have on a Manaphy or on a Rotom V and just let it sit there. Gengar EX is having some trouble getting off though. I always seem to, if not beat this deck, come really close to beating it. It seems like it needs just a little something more to make it really, really good. I'm not sure if the pros would take it seriously, but it would be really fun as a rogue meme deck on the ladder for players like myself. So I think you could definitely have a lot of fun exploring this archetype. Revavroom EX, tune-up ability. This Pokemon may have up to 4 Pokemon tools attached to it. If it loses this ability, discard tools from it till only 1 remains. Wild Drift for 2 metal and 1 colorless, it does 170 damage. During your opponent's next turn, this Pokemon takes 30 less damage from attacks. If you put on 4 rigid bands, that's minus 30 damage each. So minus 120 plus 30 minus another 30 is 150. So this Pokemon effectively has 430. Is it 430? Yeah, 150. 430 HP. That is insane. If you put a Hero Escape on it instead, it would be 500 because you're taking away a 30. I'm sorry, wait. No, it would be 400. Yeah, 500 because you're taking away 30, so it's down to 400, and then you put the Hero Escape on for 500. This Pokemon can be extremely bulky, and with the Numatangs, with the ability to attach multiple metal energy per turn, this card has potential to be a whole lot of fun in the meme rogue side of things. I don't see the pros using it because they find things like the Dialga V-Star much more effective for aggro, but for those of us who like to play aggro control, Revavroom EX has a lot of potential to be a great time. Altaria EX I think is the same way, has the Humming Heal ability. You can heal 20 damage from each of your Pokemon per turn. Light Pulse for a metal and water energy. During your opponent's next turn, prevent all effects of attacks used by your opponent's Pokemon done to this Pokemon except for damage, and does 140 damage. So you're two-shotting anything. You're preventing effects like Lost Impact and Frenzied Gouging and anything that does damage counters, like say Mimikyu. So this card I think has potential to be one of those really pesky disruption healing types of decks. I'm looking forward to trying this in the future. You see that the energy is the same here for Hisuian Goodra V-Star. I don't know due to charging difficulties if it could work, but this card could also pair with the baby Altaria, which has the exact same energy cost for the Lullaby attack that does 110 damage and it puts your opponent's Pokemon to sleep, and they need 2 heads to wake up their Pokemon instead of 1. So that sounds like a really interesting combo. Speaking of which, here's the Hisuian Goodra V-Star. Rolling Iron, 200 damage. During your opponent's next turn, this Pokemon takes 80 less damage from its attacks. That's a water, metal, colorless energy for the attack. And Moisture Star, during your turn, you may heal all damage from this Pokemon. You also could put Altaria EX in this deck and just not use it as an attacker, use it for support, maybe a backup attacker. You could use something like an experience share to accelerate the energy in this regard, or even on the Hisuian Goodra V-Star. Once you figure that out, that has the potential to be a really annoying deck to have to face. Put a Professor Turris scenario in there and you're looking at a good time for healing cards, and if you're not too concerned about energy, especially if it's not charged up. Noivern EX is massively popular, becoming popular in control decks, Pidgeot EX control and Snorlax control, because of Covert Flight. 2 colorless energy, 70 damage. You can charge it with a DTE and do 50 damage. During your opponent's next turn, prevent all damage done to this Pokemon by attacks from basic Pokemon. So think all of Future Box, all of Ancient Box. If you get a Miss Energy on it, Frenzied Gouging from Roaring Moon EX goes away. Dominating Echo for a Psychic and Darkness energy, 140 damage. During your opponent's next turn, they can't play any special energy or stadium cards from their hand. Doesn't see too much play because, frankly, nobody cares about either of those two things. They just care about not taking damage. However, EX has a lot of potential for exploration, I think, because all it needs is a DTE instead of something special. If you're looking to use only Covert Flight, you compare it with Mimikyu. You could theoretically, dare I say, pair it with Charizard EX. You could pair it with pretty much anything on this list. Use it as a 1/1 and see what happens. Maushold EX. This is hard to get consistent. It's similar to Chesnaught V with the Solidarity ability. This Pokemon is in the active spot, is damaged by an attack from your opponent's Pokemon. Even if it's knocked out, you put 3 damage counters on the attacking Pokemon for each of your Tandemaus, Maushold, or Maushold EX in play. Nominal Nom Incisors for 120, draws 2 cards, and is a DT. You can use a DTE. It's 2 colorless energy, so you're doing 100. This is great with something that you can use to spread damage around, like say Mismagius or Hisuian Braviary. I think you can tell I like those cards, but I'm just trying to give you ideas for how this works. You could try doing something like with Brute Bonnet and Poison, and then your opponent like retreats, and then you can, you know, try to get like Radiant Alakazam to like spread something on a mana fee to KO it quicker. That seems like a lot of work, and Maushold EX at this time is just way too weak to stand on its own, but you could do something with it if the right cards come in, which is true for any of these cards, ladies and gentlemen, but I think a few more with Maushold EX and it'll be decent for memeing on the internet. I had fun with it a few days ago and it was okay, but I'm not sure I would revisit it anytime soon. We're back to the beginning. Well, that was quite the journey, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining me. I hope you enjoy building your aggro control decks. Please let me know in the Discord what you think of. Please take care of yourselves, and may God bless you and hold you in the palm of his hand.